The slap didn't make a sound at first. It was the silence after that ripped through Lila's chest, the kind of silence that tells you this person has done it before. He didn't hit her with his hand. It was his words. "You make everything about you," Daniel said, voice smooth, calm, professional, like he was teaching her how to be smaller. Lila sat at the small dining table, fingers tracing the edge of her coffee cup. She wasn't angry. Not yet. Empaths rarely start with anger. They start with explanation. "I was only asking if you were okay," she whispered. He smiled the way charm disguises contempt. "That's the problem, Lila. You're always asking. Just stop reading me." Her chest tightened. She wasn't reading him, she was feeling him. That's what she did. She felt people like music under her skin. And some songs, no matter how softly they began, always ended in noise. Later that night, she stood on her balcony watching city lights flicker. She remembered her therapist's words. "You can't save someone who enjoys drowning." She breathed. Maybe this is where it ends. The phone buzzed. Daniel's message blinked on screen. "Don't make me the villain for loving you differently." Empaths always hesitate at the word love. It's a leash disguised as a promise. Lila didn't answer. She locked her phone and stared at her reflection in the glass. The woman looking back wasn't broken. She was exhausted from explaining why she deserved kindness. At 2 a.m., she started writing something she hadn't done in months. She titled the page, "How to Leave Without Sounding Cruel." Line 1. Silence is not cruelty. It's clarity. In the morning, Daniel's charm returned like spring pretending winter never happened. He texted, "I overreacted. You know how I get. Breakfast?" Lila typed back, "I can't today." Her pulse jumped. Small boundaries feel like earthquakes. When you've lived in apology. She spent the day at the shelter where she volunteered. The building smelled of coffee and detergent. Women arrived with plastic bags full of fragments, phones with cracked screens, children with wide, quiet eyes. One of them, a woman named Tara, asked, "How do you know when it's really abuse if there's no bruises?" Lila answered softly, "When you start apologizing for existing." That night, she found Daniel waiting at her door. His face was calm, practiced. "You blocked me. I needed space." He stepped closer. "You make it sound like I'm dangerous." "Sometimes you are," she said. He laughed quietly. "You think silence will fix you? You'll miss me when it gets loud inside your head." She said nothing. Her silence was a wall he didn't know how to climb. He left with a smirk, but a crack had appeared in his control. When the elevator doors closed behind him, she whispered to herself, "This is how empathy becomes armor." 2 days passed. No calls, no texts. Then came the delivery. A single white rose with a card that read, "You win. Come home." Lila stared at it. The handwriting was perfect. Too perfect, like guilt written by a man rehearsing remorse. She placed the rose in the trash, stems snapping in half. That night, her dreams were strange. She was in a quiet room surrounded by mirrors. Every reflection showed her trying to speak, but no sound came out. When she finally screamed, the mirrors cracked, and from the cracks, light poured out instead of glass. She woke trembling, but lighter, as if something old had finally burned off. The next morning, she met her friend Sam for coffee. He had known her before Daniel. "You look different," he said. "I stopped trying to be understood," she replied. Sam smiled. "That's dangerous." In a good way. By evening, Daniel texted again. "I'm sorry for everything. Please, just talk," Lila typed. Talking never helped. Then she deleted it. Instead, she typed one word, "Goodbye." She didn't send it. Not yet. She wanted to mean it first. That night she wrote again. Title: The Psychology of Silence. Line 1. Manipulators use noise to rewrite reality. Silence returns you to your own frequency. When she finished, she felt something shift, a quiet resolve, heavier than anger, stronger than fear. Outside, the rain began. She opened the window, let the cold air wash through the room, and whispered, "He tried to break me, but he met silence." Somewhere deep inside, her story had just begun. Lila hadn't heard from Daniel for 10 days. 10 silent, steady days. That might sound peaceful to anyone else, but silence, after chaos, can feel like standing in a room where the bomb already exploded. Every night, her phone stayed face down. Still, her mind played his voice like a distant echo. "You'll miss me when it gets loud inside your head." He had been wrong, but not completely. The noise didn't come from missing him. It came from the emptiness he'd left behind. She'd spent months being defined by how she was treated. Now that he wasn't there, she had to define herself. And that was harder than she expected. At the shelter, Tara, the same woman who had asked her about abuse, hugged her tight. "You're glowing, Lila," she said. "Or unraveling," Lila joked. "Same thing," Tara said, smiling. That's how healing looks at first. Lila wanted to believe that. She really did. But she also knew patterns. Manipulators don't vanish. They regroup. That night, she was right. A message appeared from an unknown number. "I've changed. Please, don't hang up this time." Seconds later, a call followed. No name, no ID, just ringing. She didn't answer. The next morning, the same message came again, word for word. That repetition, cold and mechanical, was his real voice. The one she'd learned to decode. By noon, her friend Sam stopped by. "You look like you haven't slept." "I'm fine," she lied, sipping bitter coffee. He studied her. "You know he's not done, right? People like him don't quit. They get bored and circle back." "I know," she said. "That's why I'm not scared. I'm aware." That night, she dreamed again of the mirrors. This time, they didn't break. They reflected Daniel standing behind her, whispering things she used to believe. "You overthink everything. You're too emotional. No one else will understand you." But her reflection smiled. Then, quietly, the mirrors faded into black. She woke up with a strange calm. The kind that comes after the body finally realizes the war is over. Even if the mind hasn't caught up. At breakfast, a knock echoed through her apartment. Not frantic, just steady. When she opened the door, a delivery man handed her a parcel. No sender. Inside, a single cassette tape labeled "Listen." Her stomach dropped. Daniel used to record everything: conversations, music, even arguments. He once said, "Words vanish, but recordings never lie." She placed the cassette on the table and stared at it. Her therapist had once told her, "You don't have to open every door that knocks." She pushed the tape into a drawer and walked away. But curiosity, even for the wounded, is a dangerous spark. By sunset, she gave in. The tape clicked, static filling the air. Then his voice, calm, cold, rehearsed. "Lila, if you're listening, you know I'm not your enemy. You make villains out of people who just want to understand you. But I forgive you for leaving. I forgive you for misunderstanding me. That's what love is. Forgive her for surviving him." The arrogance in that word made her jaw tighten. He ended the tape with a final line. "You'll never find someone who sees you like I did." She turned it off. And for a moment, she realized he was right. No one would ever see her like that again. Because no one else would ever look at her as prey. She went to the window. Rain had begun again. It was always raining when she found clarity, like the world cleansing itself in sync with her decisions. Her fingers trembled as she held her phone. This time, she didn't block him. She didn't respond either. She simply left it on the table, powered on, with no reaction at all. Empaths, she realized, don't win by fighting. They win by not feeding. That evening, she joined an online support group her therapist had recommended. People spoke in broken sentences, laughter cracked with old grief. When her turn came, she said quietly, "He taught me something I didn't want to learn, that silence isn't weakness. It's distance from danger." A woman replied, "That's powerful." Leela smiled faintly. "It's practice." 2 weeks later, she got a call from the shelter. Tara had moved out, gotten a job, found a small apartment, started painting again. Lila felt a spark of pride. Healing moves in ripples, she thought. When one person finds peace, it teaches others how to swim toward it. That night, she walked along the pier near her building. The air smelled of salt and rain. Lights reflected on the water like small promises trying to stay afloat. She thought about sending Daniel one last message, not to respond, just to close the loop. But closure, she realized, is just another word for permission to stay connected. So she whispered it into the ocean instead. "You don't get to define me anymore." Her phone buzzed one final time that night. "Daniel, you've changed," she typed back. "I had to." Then, instead of hitting send, she deleted it. Real power doesn't need to be witnessed. When she returned home, she looked into the mirror. For the first time, her reflection didn't flinch. The morning sunlight fell across Lila's apartment like a question she didn't want to answer. She made coffee, then poured it down the sink. The silence had become a companion, steady, heavy, familiar. Still, she felt the tension of waiting for something to strike back. Daniel hadn't texted for 5 days. That should have meant peace. Instead, it felt like the pause before a storm at the shelter. She folded donated clothes while the radio whispered soft jazz. Tara, her friend, entered with paint on her hands and said, "He's going to try one last time." They always do when they realize the script is broken. Leela smiled faintly, then let him talk to the silence. That evening, she walked home under a pink-gray sky, her umbrella forgotten. The air tasted of rain and endings. When she reached her door, a small envelope waited on the floor. No name, just a red wax seal. Inside was a note written in neat, practiced handwriting. "You'll never find another who understands your soul. Meet me once for closure. 1 coffee. That's all. No threat, no apology. Just bait wrapped in politeness." She left it on the counter. Her therapist's voice echoed. In her head, manipulators frame control as compassion. The second you explain yourself, you step back into the trap. That night, she dreamed she was walking through a maze of mirrors again. But this time, her reflection wasn't silent. It whispered, "You already know the exit. Stop asking permission to use it." She woke up sweating. The note still lay on the counter like a dare. At noon, Sam called. "You free for lunch?" "Not today," she said. "I think he's going to test me again." Sam sighed. "Do you want me to stay nearby? I want to see how strong silence really is." That evening, she left her apartment door unlocked, not to invite danger, but to prove she wasn't afraid anymore. She made tea, sat on the couch, and waited for peace, not panic. Hours passed. Then, near midnight, the door clicked. Daniel stood in the frame, wet from rain, face pale, eyes glossy with something between guilt and pride. "You shouldn't leave your door unlocked," he said softly. "I knew you'd come." He frowned. "You wanted this. I wanted to see if you'd need control enough to break boundaries." His mouth twitched. "You talk like a therapist now." "No," she said. "I talk like someone you can't narrate anymore." He stepped closer. "I'm not the villain, Lila. I never said you were. Villains at least know what they're doing." For a moment, silence pressed between them like a wall. Then he reached into his coat pocket and placed a small pendant on the table, her old locket. The one he had once called mine because I kept you safe. "Thought you'd want it back," he murmured. She didn't move. You kept it to remind yourself you still own something. He flinched, just slightly. You've changed. That's what healing sounds like, she said. His composure cracked. You think you're better than me now? No, she answered. I think I finally see you without the fog. He took a step forward. Say what you want. Scream. Call me a monster if it helps. I don't need to, she said quietly. You already know what you are. That line landed like a blade. His jaw tightened, the performance unraveling. You'll regret this silence, he hissed. You'll end up alone. She smiled faintly. Alone is quieter than chaos. For a long moment, neither moved. Rain tapped against the window in steady rhythm. He turned away first. When the door shut behind him, Lila's knees trembled. She let herself fall onto the couch, breathing out years of control that weren't hers anymore. The next day, she took the locket to the ocean. The sky was clear, the waves silver with sun. She opened the tiny clasp, saw their photo inside her younger face beside his perfect smile. She whispered, goodbye to the woman who kept fixing broken glass, and threw it into the water. It sank without sound. Back at home, she wrote in her notebook, silence doesn't punish. It reveals. When noise stops, you finally hear what people mean. Some apologies are just rehearsed hunger. She closed the notebook and smiled. For the first time, her words didn't tremble. That evening, her phone lit again, unknown number, single message. You're proud of yourself? You destroyed us. She typed back one line and sent it. There was no us, just you performing love. She powered the phone off. Days passed quietly. Her world shrank and brightened at once, smaller, simpler, cleaner. She went back to painting, filled her walls with color. Each brushstroke felt like reclaiming space. At the shelter, Tara showed her a new tattoo on her wrist. Stay soft. It's a reminder, Tara said, that softness and weakness aren't twins. Lila nodded. They never were. That night, she watched the sunset from her balcony. The city glowed orange and gold. For a second, she thought she saw Daniel's silhouette down the street, still waiting for her reaction. But when she blinked, he was gone. Maybe he had never been there at all. Maybe he had finally run out of scripts. She whispered into the fading light, you can't break what no longer echoes. The wind carried her words away like a promise already kept. The rain had stopped, but the city still shivered. Lila stood outside the cafe where they had first met, watching strangers rush past with umbrellas like shields. Inside, light pooled on wooden floors, warm but sharp. She had chosen this place on purpose, public, open, safe. Daniel had texted earlier, if we could just talk, I can explain. She had replied, 1 hour. Public place. He agreed too quickly. Now she waited, heartbeat steady but eyes scanning. A reflection in the window looked calm, almost detached. The woman who once whispered apologies no longer lived there. The bell chimed. He entered with the same careful smile that had fooled her months ago. Lila, he said softly, sliding into the seat across from her. You look peaceful. Peaceful doesn't mean forgiving, she answered. He leaned forward, lowering his voice. I've been seeing a therapist. I understand things now. That's good, she said flatly. You're still angry. I'm not angry. I'm aware. He blinked, thrown off by her tone. His script required emotion tears, shouting, proof he mattered. She gave him none. I never meant to hurt you, he began. I was broken. You were careful, she corrected. There's a difference. He chuckled, but it sounded thin. You've rehearsed this. No, she said. I've lived it. From the counter, the barista called an order. Steam hissed. Outside, traffic roared. For the first time, Daniel looked smaller, like noise fading behind glass. He tried again. You made me feel worthless when you left. That feeling existed before me, Lila replied. You just hid it under my empathy. Something flickered in his eyes, defeat mixed with panic. Predators panic when mirrors finally reflect them. You talk like you're perfect. No, she said calmly. I talk like someone who stopped explaining pain to the person who caused it. He straightened. You think silence makes you powerful? It made me free. Across the room, a man near the window Sam pretended to read his phone. Lila had asked him to sit nearby, just in case. Witnesses make abusers uncomfortable. They prefer darkness. Daniel noticed him. His jaw tightened. So you brought backup. I brought light, she said. He laughed once, brittle. You're dramatic, and you're predictable. He reached for his coffee, pretending composure. You'll tell everyone I'm a monster. I don't have to, she said. You already did the storytelling. I just stopped editing your version. His face flushed. You're cruel. I'm quiet. That silence between them was heavier than any shout. People at nearby tables felt it something electric, final. He leaned forward, whispering sharply, You think you won? There was nothing to win, she said. Only myself to reclaim. Then she stood, calm. No drama, no trembling. Goodbye, Daniel. As she turned, he called out, louder than he meant to. You'll regret this. Heads turned. The cafe froze. She stopped, half smiling. Maybe, but I'll regret it in peace. She walked out into the wet light. Behind her, Daniel's reflection blurred against the glass, dissolving in condensation. Outside, Sam caught up. You okay? Yes, she exhaled. He finally met the silence he taught me. Sam nodded. That looked hard. It was easy, she said. For the first time, I didn't try to heal him. They walked down the block. Cars splashed through puddles. Every sound felt honest again. No manipulation, no pretending. At the corner, she stopped. I used to think empathy meant absorbing pain. And now? Sam asked. Now I know it means recognizing what isn't mine. He smiled. That's freedom. She looked up. The sky was clearing, faint gold between clouds. Freedom doesn't roar, she said. It whispers. That night, at home, Lila opened her notebook one last time. Final entry. Empaths aren't fragile. They're mirrors that learn to stop reflecting monsters. She dated the page, closed the cover, and placed it beside the old cassette. Then she powered off her phone for good. Not as avoidance, but as closure. From her balcony, the city hummed alive, distant, safe. Below, a couple laughed, a siren wailed somewhere far away, and rainwater glittered under street lamps like tiny survivors. She whispered into the wind. He tried to break an empath, but he met silence. And silence, this time, stayed on her side. If this story moved you, subscribe for more dark psychology tales every week. Share it with someone who understands quiet strength. And comment the one line that hit you hardest, because every silence hides a story worth hearing.